Hi, today on Catching Serendipity, we have Sarah. Sarah, thank you for joining us. And Sarah's going to give us a little bit of background. I chose to talk to Sarah because I felt like she was determined and she has a really good idea about what she wants in life. And I find that really attractive. So, Sarah, we're going to start with, a little bit of your background and tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be and the person that you are today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Definitely excited to chat today. And I guess within reflection of how I came to be, one defining thing is I am a triplet, so there's like two more of me.
Really?
Yeah, so grew up in a household being a triplet. I have two older sisters. My mom still is running a daycare where there's about 8 kids. So I grew up in this space of a lot of kids, a lot of movement, but also within that this ideology that was kind of instilled in me from a young age, but like sharing and community. So I think that has really influenced a lot of my decisions and actions today. And then on top of this, I grew up in a very white neighborhood, very more well-off neighborhood, and I recently found out, I'm both black and white. I was one of, I would say, 6 of the darkest students in the whole school. So growing up, my triplet sisters and I always feeling kind of different and navigating, just this whole, I guess, society. Like, this is just like what we grew up in, figuring out, they say code switching, like what you can say when you can say it. So I learned how to navigate people as well, and to be, I guess, within that, my mom always instilled, she's black, like, I was laughing about this the other day, like all the little things that she taught us to not hopefully get us into trouble, because it was like, yo, you are different. Like, if anything's gonna happen, the finger's gonna probably be pointed at you. So within that, I guess, came this thought process, again, I said, like, sharing community, but the internalization being a woman, or at that time a girl of color, is like, why is this? So there's this reflection, and then through that I think I became kind of more justice oriented from a young age. I was like, we're different, but why? Like, always kind of questioning why. My sisters and I are all kind of within this like social justice-y realm in different facets now, which is really interesting. So I think growing up being explicitly different from the other kids economically, we were on food stamps, but then I keep mentioning it, my mom's employment, just having so many kids and a lot of like community around us really influenced me. And then I would say I became more and more influenced, and I realized I was pretty social and that I liked bringing different groups of people together. So in high school I was in like theater, rugby, soccer, business, but what I loved the most was bringing all those people together, like just different perspectives. And like just see like what conversations are gonna have, and like also within that a lot of people didn't get along within these different cliques in high school. So kind of being a mediator, and I realized I like to like kind of figure out like where's the differences, how can we come together. And that, I guess, just at such a young age, I didn't realize how much it influenced me. And then, I grew up, I went to a school in Greeley, Colorado in my undergrad, and there was a hub of refugees and immigrants that lived there. There was a meat packaging plant that has a lot of inequities, but that's where some folks ended up working, and I became friends with some folks and starting to see, just different injustices that different walks of life have. And I volunteered at this immigrant and refugee center, and through that, just seeing different hardships. And then what has really changed me as well, and we've talked about this, is going to South Africa during their worst water crisis, and there was a the president resigned at the time as well. So seeing politically, environmentally, socially, just the nexus of all these interacting pieces, but then teaching in the township as well, and seeing systematic racism contingent on a history of just the apartheid and how it still had ramifications, really got me motivated within the environmental injustice discourse. And then I taught in South Korea within that same year, So I think, just taking chances of getting outside of the United States has really helped me flourish, and doing so mindfully I think is important. And yeah, since moving to Flagstaff, I recently, it's not as recent, but within the last year, got my master's in applied sociology with an emphasis in the environment. And since moving to Flagstaff, I'm like, I love this town because there are these opportunities to connect with people. I mean, it's like that 1 degree of separation here. And just the studies that I did and bridging that academic gap to community engagement has been really important to me. I've been able to go to the Navajo Nation and volunteer, helping out some Dene elders and families with agricultural work, and working at Colton Community Garden and connecting back to the land has been something that has really, I guess, shifted me back to like kind of who I was as a kid, like gardening and working with my dad and planting. And through this gardening and farming discourse, it was a way for me to realize how to ameliorate some injustices at a local, more grassroots level. And also within that to bring back the community and that sharing aspect through food. I think we've chatted a bit, but Colton is so unique and kind of alternative to a capitalistic mass food system, because we grow the food and then we put it on the table and people can go buy, and whoever you are, you don't even have to have worked an hour at Colton, you can go and grab the food. And to see that bin or that basket just filled with food one day and then the next morning it's gone, it's just like, that's what it's about. It's about sharing. Right. It's about providing healthy food to people. And then within the similar discourse of Colton is just this community engagement aspect that was really harnessing and cultivated in that space, and providing education to people and showing the possibilities of growing food in Flagstaff. So I think working within community and with the land and doing that together has really motivated me, and tied back to ways to address inequities and injustices pertaining to food. But I think food connects to so much more. There's a lot of intersectionalities too,
So I'm really blown away. I'm picturing what you went through as a child. So you experienced being different, but wasn't out and out racism, is what you're saying, and you didn't see that until you got to South Africa. I mean, you witnessed this really close.
I guess, and I think racism is it seems to be an ever evolving thing. So like explicit racism, I wasn't. I guess there was more implicit racism that I experienced as a kid. Like I have a story of like my tire popped in this more well-off neighborhood, and these people came by, didn't even ask to help. They were like, "Oh, your tire's like blown out." I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Okay, on your way home, don't stop at the local KFC." So it was like these like stereotypes of being black, and just like
stop at the local KFC.
So that's like a stereotype that people like. I don't even like fried chicken, and it's like
I see what you're saying.
Like,
I was like, why?
Exactly. That's why it should be like, why? Why is this even? But yeah, people are just and like my mom being stopped and things because of having a nicer car and being a black woman. Like those incidents did happen on a micro level, but then in South Africa, I think I really saw it on a micro level working with black students who, the system unfortunately just prioritizes some over the others because of our race. And I did see it more so within the lens of not just a personal experience that I had growing up and just, different experiences growing up being different because of the color of my skin, but in South Africa it was like, wow, the whole like kind of a system at play. I mean, the apartheid was strategic in where they placed these townships, and like the lack of water, and it was exaggerated because it's like these kids and families already didn't have water, but now we're in a water crisis, and there's Afrikaans, and I don't want to like generalize too much, but then there's different groups of people who we were limited to 50 liters a day, but some took advantage of that and weren't punished, whereas some didn't even have water to begin with. So I think, and then I saw, the health impacts on top of this and who it impacted even more. So I think in South Africa, from my outsider perspective going in, it was like, wow, this is a whole system at play, and this is some of the history, and this is where we're at now, and why is it impacting these people over another? And within those impacts, like, yeah, just the, I guess, ramifications of public health, food, environment, education, social well-being. Why is that? And why are these other people having still pools in their backyard, and these people can't even have clean water to begin with? So I think, yeah, I've experienced it micro, within a personal lens, and then I'm in South Africa, and then I was able to connect, oh, this is happening in South Africa. Okay, what's going on in Flint, Michigan? Like, what's going on? Like, these connections between the United States and South Africa at the time. It was kind of interesting, and that's when, like, Trump was, I think, just got elected or about to, so I was, like, kind of connecting some dots of systematic racism embedded in so many, horrific colonizing. I don't even know, like, the words.
It seems pretty obvious that seeing inequities and experiencing that really shaped your determinism.
Yeah. And definitely, I think it has, and then my determination is, like, how do we bridge these gaps? And none of that is, like, I've been, like, trying to work with, okay, there are people that have differences than me, but things are so contentious nowadays. Like, how do we? And I think I'm determined by a process of, and this is a learning, evolving, and becoming of how do we heal together, because we do have differences and we all come from different walks of life. But in the end, when things, I have kind of a dystopic mindset, unfortunately, like when climate change really does, and it is impacting people, but when it impacts people who have been so far away from the issue, and then, I guess, support the root of the issue, which to me is like capitalism. But when that kind of dismantles, because there, the IPCC report, there's different scientific data that is saying, like, if we don't address this soon, things are, like, the food system's going to crumble, and, like, things that we rely so much on. So when that does happen, my determination is from how do we build a resilient community. I think Flagstaff is a wonderful place to do that, but within that, how do we look past our differences, because in the end, it is going to be, like, we have to work together. So trying to be determined in the light of, like, yeah, there are injustices, let's address those, while also having conversations and difficult conversations with people that we disagree with. It's still something I'm trying to navigate, and not, I'm trying to get over a lot of stereotypes, and it is going to be difficult, but in the end, I have this thought that we're better together than alone, and we're going to have to look past our differences to heal and recognize the history and the horrific history. And
I think that you're mentioning that you have to get over a few stereotypes. Yeah. I think that's the thing that really drives people these days, is what they think and what they've been told and what they believe, and it makes me more understanding. I'm trying to get more understanding toward people who have a stereotype. So, I mean, your mom being stopped in her car, why the hell are you doing that? Yeah. You can't stop her just because of the color of her skin. And well, I have a stereotype that, people from this part of the country feel this way. Yeah. Well, not everybody feels that way. But the generalization for me is there. Yeah. And you were saying you don't want to generalize too much. Yeah. And so we have these pockets, and looking for those pockets and navigating those pockets are really something that's hard to do. Yeah. And plus, I mean, well, there's several things. You're triplet, and mixed race, and a woman. Yeah. And so, have you experienced any discrimination because of your gender?
Probably. I'm sure. I'm, like, undoubtedly it's had to happen. I think Yeah, I'm trying to think of an explicit example other than like, I don't know. I think probably discrimination, but then, oof, no, that's right. All the things that come to my mind first are like racism. Like, okay, there's that example.
But you do have some other stuff to, you know.
I guess that's at the forefront. I'm like, oh, I am a person of color. Like, that's my first identity. Because that's how I feel like the world's seeing me. And then it's like, oh, I'm a woman. Identify as a woman. But I'm trying to think, honestly. I guess, like, people thinking, like, gardening, they're like, oh, you're not tough enough, you can't lift this, and just, like, things like that I'm like, okay, like, I will do that. Like, and, like, I guess, like, oh, you're such a small woman, but then it gets into just, like, different discourses. But I'm sure, like, I think just being a woman and walking around, like, don't want to walk around at night, like, just the things that you internalize as a woman, and, like, going to the bathroom with your friends, because it's just like, okay, let's go together, like, we don't want to, like, run into any situation.
It's so strange that we have to think that way.
Always, yeah. It's always like, I don't know, there's like double consciousness. It's like, there's a sociological theory, but that's like being both, or just being black in the United States, but then I'm like, yeah, being black in the United States, but then being a woman, and imagine if I was like queer identity, or like just all these different intersections, and like how that really does shape how you walk through your life, but then how people receive you, and then, you know, the micro
Right.
into the system, and it's just like all these different levels of isms that people face, but really do shape how they walk literally through their worlds and the world.
And before we go,
Mhm.
what would you like to say to young women? Do you have something that you would like young women to do, or young people of color,
Yeah.
or young mixed race people?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like, continue on. Like, I'm like, there is going to be hardship just given your identity, but continue on. I think, it's interesting. Okay, this is going to be maybe a little weird, but I do think about like my ancestors, like where do I come from and what they went through, and how I am a continuation of their actions and my own, and how can we act for a more just world within our conversations, our actions, educating ourselves, reading. But things are like, the system is going against you, and you know, when you are experiencing those hardships, it's like, this was an intentional thing. You know, we're on stolen land, colonized by a lot of white folk. Like, why is that, and why are you going through this? But it's like, the system was to fight against you, so just like your being is a form of resilience. And you know,
Yeah.
we're stronger. I keep saying, like, we're stronger together, so unite yourself with people, but then also, again, within that healing process is like, okay, I think once you're comfortable, like it's taken me, and I think it will always continue to be comfortable, like wearing my hair natural, like being, you know, you internalize a lot in how to code switch, I mentioned earlier, but, you know, finding that empowerment within who you are, and that's like who you've been in the past, your ancestors, but then thinking about, you know, the future generations and working together. But I think, yeah, just continue to fight the fight. I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle, but it's not going to be as difficult if, you know, we're supporting each other, giving each other water on the way up, food, and working together. So I think empowering yourself is empowering community and bringing community together within your interests, you know, like find what you get at and come together with people. So, but we got a long way to walk. We're gonna do it together. So.
What fun stuff are you planning this summer?
Oh yeah, so much gardening. It's gonna be great. Yeah, gardening, Soup Yard Farms is really gaining some momentum. Providing food to the community at Secrets. We're hoping to just give food to, you know, parents, students at the market, volunteering. Yeah, I'm hoping to just get my hands dirty and working with communities. Look forward to some gardening. And yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, Sarah. I
course.
really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.